There's something really beautiful about owning a bookshelf, beside from the fact that you have a place in where to put books after you finish them, more or less like Stefan Salvatore and his list of names. Another beautiful thing is that you may be looking at the bookshelf for whatever reason, and then you notice a book that you haven't touched or read in like ages, and then you pick it up and remember exactly why you love that book and who you were when you first read it. And that's what happened to me the other day, and that's exactly what gave me the idea for this video. The book I stumbled upon the other day was this one. Now the title is in Italian, but this is well known to everyone. This is a Beautiful Disaster, I believe. Beautiful Disaster by Jamie McGuire. This came out in the early 2000s, maybe 2010, you know, that decade. And you know, when you read it, like I read it now for the sole purpose of this video at 22 years old, and I can clearly see when it was published, you know. And it made me think, because as you can see, this book was well loved. I reread this I don't know how many times. I don't remember how old I was when I first bought this. I think I was about 12 or around that age, and I remember loving this book so much. So I was a bit disappointed when I picked it up the other day, almost 10 years after, and I did not enjoy this book whatsoever. Did not enjoy that. There is something interesting that I thought after finishing this book the other day, and it was a natural thing, like natural comparison to the rose, and that I made between this that I'm fairly sure is my first romance novel that I read, and my last one, which is exactly this one. Now, I raved about this book everywhere to whoever would listen, on this channel, on my Instagram account, you know. So yeah. They were also on the same shelf because I arranged my books per genre. So I have a whole shelf for romance novels, and these books were standing side by side, and it made me really laugh because, you know, this is the book that a 12 years old me loved, and this is the book that 20 years old me loves at this moment, which is also my last romance read. Well, to be fair, my last romance book that I read is actually The Love Hypothesis, but to make this comparison even more meaningful, I chose this one, and I'm going to explain why. You're going to see why when I get into the plot of both of them. Reflection that spurred this comparison is that it's really, you know, there's something timeless about books, not in the conventional sense, like, you know, there's books and stories that were written centuries ago but are still very relevant these days. We are in 2021, and I can still relate to Elizabeth Bennet, and we live in very different time periods. So, but I was referring to something, to something else, like, you know, like I said, I've picked up this book and I remember clearly who I was when I first read this, and I could clearly see why 12 years old me loved this book so much. So without further ado, I'm going to present this book a bit if you haven't read it, even though I think this was a bit of editorial phenomenon, like not only when it was first published, but it is still relevant to this day. It is a bit of a series. Like, I read this one, the second one, and maybe the third one, because the love interest as four brothers, I believe, and so after writing their story, Travis and Abby, the author wrote like the second novel, which is the same story but from his point of view, and then she moved on to writing love stories for every one of the Maddox brothers. So but I stopped at book 3 because enough is enough, you know. So okay, if you haven't read this book, this is the story about Abby and Travis. Now Abby is at her first year of college. She doesn't know what she wants to do with her life yet, but she's really set on making something out of herself, and she's a bit of an interesting background, which she will eventually discover. And Travis, well, Travis is playboy of the university, you know, different girl every night, more than one girl at night. And he also plays box, but like illegal box, you know, those matches that happens abandoned building, you know, in sketchy places, whatever, you know, because it is something illegal, but it pays well, he's good at it. So, and they meet at one of his matches. He's called Travis the Mad Dog Maddox, because he has a bit of a reputation, he's fairly good at what he does, and so everyone loves him basically. And Abby doesn't. When they first meet, Abby is not sold on him, on his ways, on his reputation, or whatever, but then they make a bet and she loses the bet, and so they are forced to live together because Abby's best friend is dating Travis' cousin. Enough for the plot, but again, I can see why old me loved this book. You know, Travis is the stereotype boy that is pretty much featured in every Wattpad fix of this period at least. He is possessive, he is impulsive, he is jealous, he is not violent per se, but it doesn't take him a lot to tick off and go mad, you know. He is not called Travis the Mad Dog Maddox for nothing. And MP is the total opposite. She wears cardigans, she wears pearls, she's focused on her career, she has a no bullshit attitude, you know. But now, as I reread this, you know, this does not work for me. And I think that the problem that I had with romance as a genre is kind of these tropes and this kind of book's fault, because you know, it's a good written book and a bad written book, and so when you read a book that is, you know, not well written, the characters are poorly built and whatever, you cannot link that book to the genre he belongs in, and then merge your opinion of the book with your opinion of their genre. And that's what I did when I was little. You know, it's been in like a couple months, a month ago, that I started reading romance novels again after, you know, 10 years, I believe. And the reason is I thought it was pretty full of cliches, full of stereotypical situation and characters. And I mean, some of the stories, some of the romance books and rom-com movies you see in TV, they are like that, but not everyone. And especially I've discovered a lot of well-written rom-coms. Been reading them lately. The Love Hypothesis is an example of them. The first one that comes to mind because I finished it like yesterday. So, but okay, my problem, the 22-year-old me problem with this book is that they are a bit too stereotyped, these two characters, you know, bad boy, good girl. Nah, Abby's character is not really developed. Yes, she's a bit interesting because she has an interesting background, but not so much. She's basically a pick-me girl. I did not appreciate how much she's slut-shamed every girl Travis brought home. You know, you can say you're jealous. There's not really, you know, okay, you don't want to say you're jealous because you're prideful, you don't want to admit that you care about what he does, fine. But these girls don't have to pay for your immaturity, basically. You know, we've grown out of that kind of situation. I hated it, and so this is fairly common and it happens fairly often in this story. So yeah, it made me really uncomfortable. And the relationship between them happens all too quickly. Like they meet, they're interested in each other, fine, that's okay, you know, can happen. But then, okay, they are forced to, they meet each other pretty frequently because, like I said, her best friend is dating his cousin, so they meet very frequently. But from the moment that they make that bet and Abby loses the bet with Travis and they start living together, um, things escalate too quickly. Like, I want to see a relationship that is built on, you know, first impressions and then overcoming their first impressions if they were wrong, because of course there's the stereotype of being a jock, of being the bad guy, of being the heartbreaker of the university. I wanted to see that, and it does happen, but too quickly. And then my biggest issue maybe with this book is the miscommunication trope. Now, I understand that from a narrative point of view it could be useful, it moves the story along, you know. I don't personally, I don't like it, but I can close an eye on it if it is well executed. Like, you put the trope in a point of the story where it is needed, but then it is overcome. Like, it does not become a routine. But they don't talk to each other. Abby does not talk to Travis. Travis does not talk to Abby, and so they make up. They break up, and then they make up again, and then they break up again, just because they don't talk to each other. Like, why? Half of this book would not exist if they just sat, you know, face to face and said, okay, listen, I want this, this, and this, and I expect this and this and this from you, you know, like. And that's what I don't like. It doesn't work for me. Maybe it worked for 12 years old me because I was a bit of a pick me girl. Luckily, I've outgrown that phase, and I understand that it's difficult to communicate your feelings when you're in a relationship, when you have a troubled past and whatever. But I'm just so over this kind of story and relationship, really. And again, I understand that this book was for 2010, 2013, I don't remember, so it fits perfectly in that literature time. All the stories were pretty much like this, published and non-published on Wattpad, for example. But yeah, no. Anyway, I mean, I was sad to give a bad rating to this book because, again, I love this so much, and but yeah, it didn't work for me again as well as it did when I first picked it up. So maybe the lesson from this video is to not pick up your favorite books from when you were little, because then you will be disappointed. But yeah, no, it's not really true, because I could pick up my favorite reads, my other favorite reads from when I was little, like the Secret Garden, or you know, Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre has been my favorite book since I was 18. It has been like 4 years. I'm not good at math, so maybe I could be wrong, but like 4 years, and I still love that book dearly. So yeah, this book, no, but it made me really laugh if I compare it to this other book, because they're so different. Like, in a way, there is the same kind of boy, like male interest, because, you know, Ronan is a bit possessive and jealous too, but you know, okay, the main difference is this. In this situation, like, you know, real life setting, academic setting, or whatever, the fact that Travis is so jealous, is so possessive and impulsive, is actually a red flag for me. When it happens in a situation like this one, of course it's still a red flag, but this is a dark romance, this is a mafia romance, of course it's full of red flags. But you know, no one is looking around for a mafia guy to date, but guys like Travis are all around us. I literally all around us. Like every one of us knows a guy like Travis. So that's when it becomes problematic for me. But now quickly let's move on to this bad boy here that I, as you can see, deeply loved. Now, if you haven't watched my video, I did a single video all on this book and the series it belongs in, the Mid series. But I'm just gonna explain a little bit of the plot just to let you understand the difference between this one and the other book, because like I said, this is a mafia romance, so dark romance, very dark. It is an enemies to lovers, very heavy enemies to lovers, since Rona is in the Bratva, the Russian mafia. There's a lot of violence, not necessarily directed at Mila, like Rona never physically hurts Mila. Maybe in a way he does, of course, because of the situation she's put in. He kidnaps her, so of course he hurts her, but it is more linked to the situation and to his own limits and trauma than his wish to actually hurt her. Of course, I'm not justifying anything that he does to her, but I'm just explaining his background. So basically Mila is the daughter of one of the Bratva men, but she doesn't know. So she was born and raised in Miami, but she knows she is Russian, but never actually been in Russia. So one day she decides to go to Moscow to look for her father, because her father has been absent for months and she just knows that he is in Russia. So she goes to Moscow and thinks, of course, what is going to go wrong? I'm going to just look for my father, have a great time, maybe meet my family, all this kind of thing. But then she goes to Moscow, and who does she find? Ronan. Now the situation in which they meet is a bit sketchy, because Mila is assaulted in the middle of the streets because it's dark. She's clearly a tourist and whatever. The assault was orchestrated by Ronan, but she doesn't know, and so Ronan comes in and saves the day. She basically falls in love with him at first sight. It is very funny because Mila is very awkward in a way, especially not very experienced in the relationship department. White Ronan, of course, is a whole other situation. And so there's the first part of the book in which is very funny and maybe a bit more like rom-com than the rest of the book, because they go out, they date a bit. Ronan buys things for her, he buys vegan pastries for her because he knows she's vegan, and this kind of stuff. But then things come out, and he actually kidnaps her, and so Mila learns the truth about him, about the mafia, about their father, and the whole situation. And so like I said, if you want to know more, go watch the video I've made especially on this one, because the point of this video was to make a comparison between these two and to just share with you my disappointment in rereading one of my all-time favorite book. So, but it made me really laugh, because can you imagine, like, I'm basically another person, like what happened to me? But no, I'm glad, because this kind of book, this kind of representation, no, it's over. And in fact, in all the romance book I read lately, I've read quite a few. I've read People We Meet on Vacation, then I read Beach Read, The Love Hypothesis, and others. They do not focus solely on the love aspect of the story, but they also have something else that they talk about. Like in People We Meet on Vacation, there's the millennial ennui, which I thought was really, really interesting and relatable. In Beach Read, there's also the matter of loss, grief, and writer's block, and all everything that comes with dealing with struggling with writing. And in Love Hypothesis, there was also the situation of women in predominantly male field, like science and research and STEM basically, and all that entails. I don't want to spoil anything, but it really was interesting because you add these important issues to a very cute and funny, sometimes steamy love story, you know. And that, I think that is the right recipe, the good recipe for a successful rom-com, you know, not like this one, like no, we're over this. But of course, when we talk about dark romance, then that's a whole other genre, so we have very different expectation when it comes to this kind of stories, you know, so especially when it is mafia. You know. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting to compare these two books to basically reflect on how we change and how we react to things differently, especially books and stories, after a while. Like, for example, when there was a book that is called Miss Charity that I really liked when I was, you know, younger, and I'm sure that if I picked it up now, I'm not saying that I'm going to find it as problematic as this one, because it was pretty mild in the romance department. It was more a coming of age story, but I'm sure that you know, maybe I will not have hard eyes if I read it again, but I will still enjoy it and find myself, you know, a part of myself in that book, and that it's, you know, there's something priceless about that, about the fact that you know, I can see a photo of myself when I was 12, and yes, I can remember where I was, with who I was, maybe what I was thinking or what I was doing in the particular moment. But when I pick up a book that I remember clearly enjoying when I was younger, that's different. I can clearly see myself, like who I was, my belief system and everything. That yeah. Yeah, and it's also very funny to realize how further I've come, how different my taste is now, and what kind of books I'm enjoying now, you know. So I'm curious, has that ever happened to you too? Like, you know, do you happen to reread books, and especially reread books that you haven't read in a while? Sometimes it's just set up for, you know, disappointment. Like I said, I should have known that I would have not enjoyed this book as much as I did. But I, you know, I can still think fondly of the story, but based on what it meant to me. But yeah, I would not recommend the book, for example, right now. There are lots of other books that are way better. So yeah, thanks for clicking on this video. I hope you liked it. If you have been in the same situation as me, then let's chat in the comments. I'm very curious, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.